Welcome to Vivid Vibes Podcast, where we talk about information for your soul's vibration. This is Jada.
And I'm Laura.
And today we will be talking about what we mean when we say soul's vibration. We'll also kind of be talking about ourselves and really just giving you guys a good intro because this is our first episode. And we're so excited.
Yes. Numero uno. Yay.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here, guys. We're so excited to share so many different things with you. So first, we're just going to start off with who we are and what we do. So, Laura.
Yes, Jada.
Yes. So, I guess first we'll kind of just talk about how we met.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. So, do you want to just tell everybody how we met?
Sure, yeah. You and I are both involved in the Kava community in our local area. And I believe it was around September or October of 2019 that I began going to Stateside Kava Bar, where I was selling some of my unique jewelry and creations because I am an artist, but I'm also promoting my other skill sets that I do, such as hypnosis and tarot card reading. So ultimately, you came up to me, I believe, on one chance, and we did our first card reading.
Yes. And I honestly was super scared to get a tarot card reading because the first time I ever had my tarot cards read, the girl pulled the devil card, and I was like, ooh, girl, put that back. But my mind was honestly blown when you did that card reading, because it was like you were telling me stuff that nobody could have told you. Like, it was like intuitive knowledge, and I was immediately like, I'm going to be friends with this girl.
Hey, girl.
And here we are.
Yes. Yeah, because I was doing hypnosis sessions, guided meditations at the crystal shop I was working at the time, or partnered with at the time, and you said, yeah, I think I'll show up to one of those. And I'm questioning, because everybody might say that, and you never know who's going to actually do that.
Totally.
And you and our friend Jimmy Stacy, he shows up, and it was a wonderful session. And you want to talk about that at all, like how that went for you?
Yeah, totally. So I totally know what you're talking about, by the way, with people saying, oh, I want to come to your thing, and then they don't, because I'm a yoga instructor, by the way. So everybody, whenever you say you're a yoga instructor, they say, oh, like, where's your class? I want to come to your class. And that's so great. That makes me so happy when people say that. But, like, you know, about 90% of them never actually come.
Yeah.
So, but I'm so grateful for the friends of mine that do come to my classes.
Yes, as am I in any case. So
Yeah.
we're on the same page there.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the hypnosis was amazing. It was like, I feel like when most people hear hypnosis, they think of, like, you know, some guy swinging a pendulum back and forth and being like, you're very sleepy.
Right. Or the common one is that they like think it's some sort of mind control or brainwashing.
Yeah, like, you're gonna make me cluck like a chicken.
Yeah, no, that's not how it works.
It wasn't like that. No, it was more like you helped me go into my subconscious mind and release something, which was beautiful. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about what you do. So you do hypnosis. So what can people use hypnosis for?
Practically anything. If you're a living person that can follow directions, hypnosis can be a great tool for you to overcome any obstacles that you might be facing in your personal life, or like on an internal level, like introspection. Because we go into conscious thought and subconscious thought in and out daily, and most often people don't even realize it. And basically all that means is you're going through self-hypnosis every day. Hypnosis is just a word for diving into or being more focused on the subconscious mind and the different thought processes that go with that are just that the conscious mind is the short-term rational analytical thought processes, but our subconscious mind houses our emotions and our habits and our long-term memory. So my training allows me to kind of read certain body language cues from my clients and be in tune with them to know where they're going. And then, of course, I'm asking them, what are they seeing, sensing, or feeling? And then I'm just there to act as a guide to make sure that they kind of stay on track to what they want to identify, whether or not that's relieving anxiety or depression, or for the funsies, past life regressions. They just wanted to see who they were in a past life. That's my favorite part to it all.
Yes, those are awesome. We'll have to honestly do a whole episode about that.
Yes, that'll take some time.
Yes, it will. And honestly, I really love what you said about being a guide, because I took a yoga class recently where this teacher said to us in the beginning, my name is so-and-so, and today I'll be your yoga guide instead of your yoga teacher.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and she said, your intuition will be your teacher. I'll just be guiding you and listen to your intuition. And that really resonated with me, because I've always said yoga instructor instead of yoga teacher, because you're teaching yourself something in my yoga classes. Maybe I'm telling you the placement, and maybe I'm guiding you into a place of relaxation, but I'm not teaching you. You're teaching you. You're learning from yourself.
That's right. Because anybody can only be a part of their own unique perspective.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, so Jada.
Yes.
What would you call vibrations, or what resonates with you in terms of soul's vibration? So what do we mean about that? Let's elaborate on that a little more eloquently than how I just presented that.
Okay, so soul's vibration. Oh, that's a loaded question.
Yes.
It
But that's
really
what we
is.
want to talk about here.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Questions.
Yes. So, okay, if you close your eyes and you put your arms out to the sides and you imagine 2 feet on either side of that, that's how big your energetic field is. That's how big your aura is. And a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people think they're just their body, but we're really this mass of energy having this human experience. So when I think soul's vibration, I think my energetic bubble, and I think how that's affecting the world around me. Because even just me sitting next to you right now, if I were in a bad mood, especially since you're intuitive, you would feel it. And you would be like, Jada, what's going on? I wouldn't even have to look sad or anything. You would just feel it. Right.
And definitely, I think other people are aware of that. It's subconsciously as well, or unconsciously at moments.
Yeah.
Because you can go into a crowd or with a lot of people. I know so many people that can identify as an empath, but still the people that even don't necessarily recognize that. I have so many friends that don't think that way, but then they'll pick up on something that I'm feeling without me saying anything or acting any different way, or it's people reading, but you're picking up on energy. So
right.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And I think it's also really important to acknowledge. I read this book by Penny Pierce. It was called Frequency. And it's literally all about frequency and vibration and all that type of thing. And she puts this little disclaimer in the beginning. And it basically says something about, if you're a person who needs scientific proof to believe every little thing, this is not the book for you. And honestly, if you're going to hop in our comments and be like, that's not scientifically proven, then maybe this isn't what you should be listening to.
Right. And by no means, we're not saying what we offer is the end all be all of everything.
No.
We want to just be a source of a new conversation, because conversation and sharing ideas, I think, is ultimately what we all need to do to expand our own personal knowledge and awareness on any subject. And so we just like talking about the things we want to cover on this podcast.
Exactly.
But, hey,
exactly.
it can go
And
beyond, and by all means, to our listeners, as you go on into your life after listening to our podcast, I hope this might be a little bit of a spark for you to think on new topics and new venues, so that you may continue to grow and expand your own personal awareness.
totally. And like, whenever we were coming up with the name and the concept and all that stuff, I had recently heard this Abraham Hicks quote that said, "Feeling good is your job."
That's right.
And so when we say information for your soul's vibration, like, we honestly just want to talk about everything imaginable that could make you raise your vibration, to make you get in touch with yourself even more. And when I say raise your vibration, I'm not talking about that good vibes only bullshit, because we're not saying to like spiritually bypass. Honestly, we may have to do a whole episode just on spiritual bypassing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But spiritual bypassing is ultimately when you just put all your shadows on the back burner and say like, "Oh, I'm fine. Like, I have a mantra today."
I'm just going to say positive quotes all day, and I'm going to feel positive and only positive, and that's all I'm wanting to achieve.
Right. But like a compass stuck on north is a broken compass.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
we're here to talk about all of it, honestly.
Yeah.
So we just want to help you guys like vibrate on the highest frequency that you can. And honestly, I'm so excited to just learn so much from all the different people we're gonna have on this podcast.
Yes.
I'm just so excited.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I'm so excited too. So many opportunities ahead.
Yes. So back to what we were talking about with feeling other people's vibrations. How would you say that other people's vibrations affect you, or how can other people's vibrations be affecting our listeners without them even knowing?
Well, I believe that human beings in general are very we're social creatures. We are meant to interact with one another. And you think about it, long ago, in the beginning of man's evolution to becoming who we are today, who's to say how did we communicate before we had written languages or modern languages as we can perceive them to be? I believe that like we're all meant to be picking up on more of a subtle, energetic type of communication, and ultimately vibrations are just energy resonating through space. So we are all energetic beings with that. So for me personally, I'm a sensitive, but it's taken time for me to learn how to be a sensitive, really, because I used to not think that I could be. I always kind of admired potential like people that call themselves psychics or mediums, and I'm like, ooh, that's just so cool. They can pick up on things, like they can read minds or something.
So when you say sensitive, you're saying like, what do you mean when you say that you're a sensitive?
When I say I'm a sensitive, I'm able to with consciousness identify when I'm picking up on something that's beyond just seeing, smelling, feeling with my skin. I'm picking up on extrasensory things, but I think anybody can do that as well. I don't think I'm unique to that, and I don't think if anybody says that they have the answers to anything or that they see things that you can't, well, maybe they can right now, but honestly, anybody can tap into deeper parts of their mind and therefore become more and more knowledgeable of how they perceive energy around them.
Okay. So back to how other people's energy affects you. So like when you're out in public, let's say you're in a crowd at a music festival and everybody around you is like, you know how people are at music festivals. Everybody is like super hype and like turn on something.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you're in that type of situation, how could that be affecting you?
Well, in that particular situation, definitely every unique venue, different crowds are going to kind of hold a unique energy of themselves. And again, for a person that may not be aware of these energies, they might just feel extremely uncomfortable because their guards are up. Now they feel like, I don't know what to expect next. I don't know what this is that I'm feeling, but it's not my normal comfortable feeling that I experience when I'm at home.
Yes, they're just feeling these like pulses of energy, and to them it reads as anxiety because they're like, I'm uncomfortable.
Right.
Everybody's jumping up and down.
It makes sense too, because we're programmed for survival, so our conscious mind, the rational and analytical part of our mind, is trying to put some sort of context as to what's going on so that they know what to do next. But if you're feeling something out of the ordinary than what you normally feel, it might feel like completely alarming. But for me, I've had to train myself over the years to become more aware of what do certain energies that I'm picking up on mean, and how do I release any anxiety I might be feeling to that, so that I can be more in control and less alarmed by wherever I find myself or who I find myself around.
I see. So I would identify as an empath.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to not know. Like, I honestly used to not know what was my energy and what was someone else's energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it took several different methods and several different exercises and meditations and things like that for me to be able to differentiate. So I kind of just want to talk about that a little bit, because I feel like that could be helpful to someone.
Yeah.
So one thing for me is just really getting in touch with myself, like taking the time at some point in the day to just sit down, close my eyes, even if it's for 5 minutes, and just meditate and turn my attention inward and let anything from the outside world go. And this helps me get in touch with my authentic self, my core self, not my thoughts, not my feelings, but just me. The pure, untouched energy that exists at the very core of every single person.
Mm-hmm.
That I honestly think is the first step to grounding. One thing I really like to do is imagine sending my energy from my mind. So I'll do a little visualization where I close my eyes and I see things floating around in my mind, and then I picture sending those thoughts downward.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the time when you hear meditations and things, they're talking about connecting upward. But if we're not connecting back down, then we're not grounding our energy. So honestly, grounding is so important for being able to differentiate what's your energy and what's someone else's energy. And then another thing I really love to do whenever I'm in crowds and things like that, situations where I used to just think, I'm anxious, and now I understand, okay, I'm absorbing like this crowd's energy, is just imagine myself in a bubble of light. In this like impenetrable, did I say that right?
No, you're good.
That's a word, right?
Yeah,
impenetrable
force field.
Yes, my force field of light, and just imagine it surrounding me. And one more that I really love to do, this is more so when someone's venting to me or someone's complaining to me, especially if I did not give them permission to vent to me or complain to me. Like, I feel like it's so important to ask someone, like, hey, can I vent to you, before you just start venting to them, because you don't know what they're going through.
Right. And I agree. I do agree with that.
Like, so you just picture, my aunt taught me this one. You picture a white rose in between you and the person. And then you imagine any of the energy from what they're saying going into the rose. So that way it's like this thing of light is absorbing all of the energy from that. And I realized to a lot of people this could sound so like woo woo.
Woo woo.
But it honestly helps so much. Like
Yeah.
it's like consciously deciding not to absorb the energy from what they're telling you, but to just like hold space for them.
Yes. Now, I do agree with that. I do think at the same time we are going to probably have listeners or other people that question that and like, well, yeah, that might work for some people, but that's not been my thing. And for those people, I do want to tell you, if you are coming from a space of not understanding yourself at your core, you might have been going through a lot of changes in your life, and times and situations are kind of in a whirlwind around you. It does create this, it puts you in a space where you have to relearn who you are. And that can be uncomfortable just in that. So focusing it on yourself inward, I know so many people that just they don't know how to deal with themselves on the inside. So in those situations, I feel as if those people are taught that what they're feeling, if it is a negative feeling and they're afraid to look internal because they're afraid of facing more negative feelings, you're taught that, okay, they're negative, therefore they're bad. You shouldn't feel this way. That's not acceptable. But at the same time, you are feeling these things. And I feel there's a reason why you feel anxiety or depression or anger or sadness in whatever scope that you would label a negative feeling. We often find that, of course, yes, these feel what we would perceive as bad, so we want to escape from them. And I think some people might be thinking that they are now, if I look inwardly, I'm facing those emotions and that is bad. I don't want to face those emotions. I'm going to feel worse. But ultimately, you have to get familiar with them to understand them before they get any better.
Absolutely. I think in the spiritual community, especially, I mean, I feel like everyone's kind of starting to come around to this, but when all of these spiritual things started popping up on Instagram and all that kind of thing, when it really started booming and getting popular, it was this good vibes only, positivity kind of outlook. And that kind of just leads right back to spiritual bypassing. Like, when you are ignoring the thoughts that keep coming back to you, you're ignoring a part of your soul. You're walking around. There's this artist called Fia, Fia, and she has a lyric that says something along the lines of, those who walk around banishing the darkness and only acknowledging the light are walking around cut in half. Like, your shadows are a part of who you are, and even though that may be painful and there may be sadness or there may be anxiety or there may be depression or anything like that, that's beautiful because that's a part of you. And so I think,
yeah, it's a part of the experience.
exactly, that's a part of being human. Like, everybody has something. Everybody has some kind of darkness, and it's not a contest of whose darkness is worse. Because everyone has darkness. But whenever you are able to turn inward and look at that part of yourself and say, I deeply and profoundly love and accept myself, this amazing shift starts to happen. And things just start feeling easier. That's the only way I can explain it. Whenever you look at that part of yourself and you say, I love you.
I accept this part of me.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that is essentially, that's where you are releasing resistance to that thing. I think the uncomfortable that feeling of being uncomfortable just stems from being in resistance to those emotions. And when you release that resistance, now you have space for it. Now you can accept them as a part of you and not as something's wrong with you. You know, nothing's wrong with you.
Exactly.
You feel all spectrum of emotion. And that's the beauty of life at the end of the day there.
Yes. Like, you are whole exactly as you are right now in this moment.
That's right.
There's literally nothing you have to do, say, or be to be any more whole than you are right now.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So how does your vibration, let's talk about how your vibration manifests your reality.
Yes.
I love the topic of manifestation.
Yes, me too. Oh, yes. Now, may I start on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, I also do tarot card reading. So, everybody does tarot card readings differently, but my method and the way I present the information is meant to give advice or a new perspective on things that are going on in an individual's life. So ultimately, the way my layouts go is, okay, I say, you have this going on, this might be happening, this is making you feel this way, but really, I lead into informing a person as to being more conscious and aware of what they are feeling to begin with. Then the more consciousness you gain in terms of understanding your emotions, why you're feeling your emotions, that allows you to do things with more control rather than letting the energies of fear step in and decide things for you. When you can recognize your fears or your anxieties and see how, okay, well, this might just be to protect me in some way. Sure, but is it serving its purpose in the same way it was meant to in the beginning? Okay, say a person, for example, go back to a crowd example, I should say. Maybe a person got lost in a big crowd when they were like 3 years old. So their brain, as a form of self-preservation, has decided to give them anxiety whenever they go into a big crowd. Additionally to not just picking up on energies, but like, okay, associating crowds with being a bad thing.
Right.
So now as they get older, they, as an adult, can rationally identify how, okay, going into a big crowd is not necessarily a bad thing, but I still feel anxiety. And they may or may not be aware of the fact that, okay, I got lost as a kid, so that's influencing my anxiety. But again, when you become aware of this more and more so, and you are able to, whatever method or modality floats your boat, there's so many different tools for healing that aspect of self. But essentially, when you become more aware and less controlled by fear or the energies surrounding fear, you let that go and you gain back control and create the reality you want for yourself. You can now take the steps necessary to go in flow rather than resisting what comes at you.
Yes, love that. So whenever you say in flow, I kind of picture someone standing in a river, and it's like we have the decision to just like have like to go with the current and just like swim down the stream, or we have the option to like stand up in the river and turn around against the current. And like, which way feels better? You know what I mean? Like being in flow feels so much nicer than trying to have this tight grip on everything.
Right. And I think it's also talking about in flow, some people might associate that with being, okay, or I'm going to feel positive all the time when I'm in flow. You're still going to have uncomfortable situations come into your path. I think that's one thing that you can't avoid being in a physical body on the physical world that we live in. There's always going to be something that presents a challenge to you, but that's it. It is meant to be a challenge to see how do you overcome that.
Totally. And it's like, we're a part of nature. Like everything in nature has this ebb and flow, this change with the seasons. Like no flower is going to be blooming all year long. No tree is always going to have like bright green leaves on it. Well, unless it's like a palm tree in Florida. That's a bad example. But you get what I'm saying? Yeah. Like everything in nature has seasons. So we're going to have winter and we're going to have summer and we're going to have spring and we're going to have fall. But like honoring the winter and saying like, okay, this is a time of darkness in my life, or like, okay, there's pain in my life right now, but I accept that and I understand that at the end of this, spring is going to come. It makes life flow so much more naturally than saying like, oh, it's winter. I wish it was summer. I wish it was
Right.
I wish it was warm and things were happy. Why are things not
Right.
happy? Why am I sad? You
No, and
know?
you think about that example there. It's like you form those thoughts into wishing you had something you don't. It makes what you're going through that much more pronounced, that much more sticking out to you. You know, you
Yeah.
feel those things more prominently because you're trying to avoid them.
Totally. Absolutely. So, one thing I would like to touch on with manifestation and your vibration is the law of attraction.
Yes.
So, the law of attraction kind of blew up when that documentary, The Secret, came out on Netflix. I feel like everybody was like, oh, the law of attraction this, the law of attraction that. And maybe you've seen it like, you know, on a meme on your Facebook or something that's like, oh, if you think you want something, you can attract it with your mind. And when you hear it said like that, it honestly sounds insane.
It sounds like woo-woo.
It sure does. But what most people don't realize about the law of attraction, and this is not something that was just made up. Like, this is something that people have been going by for hundreds of years. If you really want to know more about it, maybe let us know a comment, like leave us a comment about it. Maybe we'll do an episode about the law of attraction. But there's also, you can read the book The Secret, you can watch a documentary.
There's so much resource.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
so many out there.
But the main thing with the law of attraction is the way that you feel. The way that you feel is attracting more of how you feel. So whenever, let's say you want to attract a specific goal. Let's say for me, I want to write a book. Okay. So when I say I want to write a book, the universe doesn't hear, okay, Jada wants to write a book. The universe is responding to how I feel whenever I think that or whenever I say that. So if I'm thinking I want to write a book, but my feelings around it are things like, that's impossible, that will take a long time, I don't know what I'm doing. If my feelings around it are unsure and they're scared, then it's gonna draw me away from that thing. But if I focus on that goal and my feelings around it are, I would love to do that because that would get my message out there, maybe it would help somebody, you know, like if I'm having all these good feelings about it, that would give me a sense of accomplishment, you know, that would bring me closer to people who are doing the type of things that I'm doing. If I have all these good feelings around it, then I'm naturally going to be a magnet for more of those feelings. So to me, that's how your vibration really affects your ability to manifest.
Right. And at the same time, I think people, again, if they're focusing in on their negative feelings to an extent that they're like, all right, well, bad things just happen to me now. You know what? You're going to have bad things happen to you because now you're just, that's what you're in alignment with. Until you get to a point where deep down internally you truly believe within yourself, you know what? No matter what comes to me, I'm going to rise above this. You know what? That'll go a long way with what comes along to you in your path and your journey in life.
Totally. Do you know who Gabby Bernstein is?
I feel like I know the name.
I probably have told you something about her before. I'm like obsessed with her. But she's like a meditation expert and she talks about manifestation and all those types of things. But she, oh man, I kind of just lost my train of thought a little bit. Okay, I remember now. That's going to happen a lot, by the way, guys. So she says something about instead of praying or asking for your specific outcome, ask for the highest good of all. And that's one thing I love to do because it's like if I'm asking for the best, for the highest good of all, how can I go wrong with that?
Right. And I think people have to really think on that too, because what does that mean? If we're interacting the good of all, not the self, not the individual. Someone very well may have a less than happy role to play in a long journey of sorts. but ultimately they're helping be a rock at some other level for somebody else, to be this example that this other person can look upon and see like, oh, okay. And the other individual can learn and grow greatly from someone else's potentially suffering sort of role that they might be playing. And like, you think about that, like any life, any individual story it's a story. You think about all the famous stories that get put into books or into television or movies, whatever. But ultimately, you have these characters that may be considered the bad guys, or just, life keeps pooping on them or whatever. But then you as a viewer...
You can say shitting if you want.
Okay, shitting. But you as the viewer are now another member of this story. You are taking in this story as something for you to learn from. You are...
We have a cat trying to get on the computer.
Yeah, sorry about that. My cat's trying to get in on this podcast action. But you are now a member of this story. Consciously or unconsciously, you viewing this, you are gaining something from this story. That's the purpose of entertainment or storytelling in general, is to see what you can learn. How do you grow from this perspective? And you're now seeing multiple perspectives in one outlet. You're seeing the good and the bad. You're seeing opposing forces, or all the variant roles that are playing a part of this story as a whole. And at the end of it, what do you take away from all that? And how do you integrate, not reject, all the individual people's parts that they played to create this narrative as a whole?
So when you're saying like different people's narratives, are you meaning like, though we may have had like a bad experience with one specific person, that there's a reason?
Well, we think about... What comes to mind, Romeo and Juliet, the classic, right? You have these two families wanting to kill each other. They're both at each other's throats. But for what reasons? Okay, there might not be legitimate reasons on oh, everybody's just love and peace one another. But obviously that's not happening in this case. But these two, Romeo and Juliet, are coming together, even though their families don't agree with it, and they decide, well, screw all this. We love each other. We're going to be together. Now we're going to kill each other to be with one another because no one will accept us. And I know that's a
Cliff Notes version.
Yeah. But you as a viewer, you're viewing this and feeling really bad for this couple that are just trying to love one another, and they're trying to... they wish their families would come together and no longer be at each other's throats either. But now you're no longer just looking at one individual's perspective. So anybody can look at themselves, what they're going through in their life, and think, gosh, this sucks. I'm just coming up against roadblock after roadblock, and nothing's going right, and this is just terrible. But then think about the perspectives that you can't take in as a part of you, the other people around you.
So what you're saying is, whenever there's one person who has suffering, though they may not realize it, it could be them overcoming trials and tribulations, could be inspiring the people around them.
Yeah, because ultimately you are not a single person experiencing life. I mean, everybody here is a human.
Right.
Question mark there. But everybody here who's experiencing life on this earth, again, we are social creatures. At some level, we're interacting with other people. Therefore, we are observing other people. What are we learning from those other peoples, rather than getting sucked into our one perspective of ourselves and thinking, okay, this is just the way it is for me. But you take in multiple other perspectives when you start viewing a television or movie program or reading a book. Now,
or honestly, even just looking at the people around you.
Yeah.
Like, there's an Osho quote that says something about too much self-centered thinking is the root of all suffering. And it's honestly true. Like, whenever I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I have so much to do. What am I supposed to do right now? I have to do this and this and this. And then I take a step back and I think, like, there are people who don't have jobs. There are people who maybe aren't in touch with their purpose. And like I don't know. There's so many other people to consider and so many other stories to consider.
Right. You know what? You just reminded me of something that I wrote a little short story when I was in high school. And basically, I had been thinking about, you think of the homeless man waving the sign, the end is now, like, generally people bypass that person and think, well, that's just crazy dude, avoid him, we don't know, just keep on walking, don't look him in the eye, sort of thing. You get stuck because you're trying to protect yourself, essentially. I think that's just what the crowd kind of ends up just accepting that. But then in my short story, I kind of identified that, where it's like, okay, what if one person steps away from the crowd, goes up to the man, the crazy man, and starts talking to him? It's like, why do you think the end is now? What's going on here? And try to see something different than what the rest of the crowd sees. And now, something that's different from what you yourself are potentially wanting to see. And it's easy to want to avoid something that's out of the norm, because it can make an individual uncomfortable. But when you take the time to face what is uncomfortable in the face, now you are trying to perceive a new outlook, a new perspective.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, and what can you learn from all that? So.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like a lot of the best teachers will say that every single person that you meet has something to teach you. Like, it's whenever we start thinking, like, oh, I already know everything about this, that we become, like, arrogant and maybe even stupid, honestly. Like, every single person that we meet has something to teach us. But before we go ahead and wrap up here, I kind of just want to touch on what we're going to be covering on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because we literally made this, like, I don't know if you guys remember bubble maps from grade school, but I use bubble maps for freaking everything. And there have got to be, how many bubbles do you think are on that?
Oh my God.
Like 50 plus? There's a lot.
We want to talk about anything and everything that just sounds like fun to discuss.
Yes, exactly. Anything that's going to help you raise your soul's vibration.
Exactly.
So we're going to be talking about yoga, hypnosis, meditation, spirit guides, chakras, plant medicines, tarot, oracle cards, spirituality, and so much more. Literally anything that affects your soul's vibration. So if any of those specifically tickle your fancy, leave us a comment and let us know. And whatever we receive the most comments about, maybe we'll record our next episode on that. Yes. I also would really love to talk about natural anxiety relief, because personally that's my obsession.
Add it to the bubble map.
Yes. All the things. But thank you so much for tuning into our first episode of Vivid Vibes podcast. We're so grateful that you guys listened today.
Yes. We hope to continue this this route so that we can provide quality information.
Yes. For your soul's vibration.
Exactly.
Yes. So leave us a comment, comment, share, all that good stuff. And we will see you guys next week. Namaste.
Namaste. Bye.